My name is Stephen Wessel. I'm in my early 70s. I was trained as a professional mechanical engineer, and I've spent most of my life building musical instruments, and I became very well known as a flute maker until recently, when I retired, rather reluctantly. I have a garden railway which goes back at least 40 years, and I built my first locomotive for that aged about 20. And then I built two more much more recently. And the railway, you see, has produced all sorts of wonderful spin-offs and interest for other people. But the aero engine business didn't start until a friend of mine and we met after a period of about 50 years of being out of touch. We got together again, and as boys we used to fly model aeroplanes a lot. And while there we found ourselves looking at a Sopwith Pup. My friend Charles said he'd love to build a big model of that because it was the one his father flew during World War I. So I said, well, if you're going to go to the trouble of building that, you better have a proper rotary engine in it, hadn't you? He said, well, that's all right, Stephen, you can make one of those. And there wasn't an awful lot of information out there, although one or two other people have built them, but nobody's actually flown one, at least not in this country. And so eventually I got around to measuring up some old engines, full-size ones, in museums, such as they are. I got access to 2 or 3 of them and measured them all up, did my own drawings, and eventually, after about a year and a half, finished building it. And we flew it, and it was very, very successful. It was hair-raising at every turn. And he was scared of bringing the aeroplane down, upside down, and pranging the engine, and I was scared of that too. But it didn't happen. He flew it beautifully. It's a gnome monosoupape, which was a French design, and they designed the rotary engines for all the fighter aircraft that were used, or most of them, in the First World War. It was a very successful design. And in case you're not familiar with the rotary concept, what it actually means is that the whole engine goes round on a fixed crankshaft. With this one, it's more conventional in that the engine is fixed, as nowadays they always are, and the crankshaft rotates instead in the normal way. Anybody can do anything if they choose to. If you're interested enough in something, if you feel passionately about something that you want to do, then there's nothing really in the modern age to stop you. I mean, okay, there are all sorts of restrictions. Money might be one, space for a workshop might be another, but you know, they can be overcome usually. You can start in a small way or you can start in a big way, depending on what age you are. And I started off making my first steam engine when I was only about 19. And I had no workshop. I built the boiler in my father's garden, but I had to start by building a small bench. And I used mostly hand tools. And then I went along to the local garage for a lesson in silver soldering and just did it that way. And eventually I left home and I was able to build myself a little tiny workshop in the corner of a yard of a rented place that I had for a while, and the landlord was quite accepting of that. He said, yeah, that'll be quite useful for anybody else. So I got some breeze blocks and some plastic sheeting for the roof, and I made a little workshop, bought a small lathe, which is that one over there, to put it in, and I built in there a steam locomotive. Incredible. So that's how I started, with no money to speak of really, and very little knowledge other than what I'd learned in school metalwork and in my apprenticeship with the steel industry. I learned a bit more metalwork and how to do things, but really the best lesson of all is just to do it. People who come in here and they look at these things, the first thing they say is, I don't know how you have the patience. I wouldn't have any patience. I said, well, patience has to be won. You have to train yourself to be patient. Patience is just trying again. If something doesn't work the first time, you just try again. And then if that doesn't work, you try again. Perseverance is a better word. That's what you really need, perseverance, if you're going to get there. Just keep at it, you'll get there in the end.